Okay, so normally you would design before you build. In this case, I'm designing after I built because I built this post on the fly, just kind of a spur of the moment thing. But then afterwards, now I look back at it, number one is I like to be consistent with my instructables, and usually there's some sort of design phase in there, and I show a little bit about drawing. But the other part is now I'm going to get into more the uses of the post, including the joinery. So I figured, well, I might as well go ahead and just draw it. So if you're a SketchUp geek, and you want to follow along, great. I'm going to do this at my normal pace, and I'll just be narrating as I do that in kind of a rapid pace. If you're not a geek, then if you check on instructables on this posting, this tutorial, I usually have a second video and it says non-geek, and that is I take it during editing. I take this video, speed it up, and then only break in a couple of times with non-geek kind of comments. So again, for the geeks, where I'm going to go with this is this. I'm going to start with the T. I use speed keys all the time. I want my post. I know the post ended up being 4.5 inches, so I'm typing 4.5 enter on that direction. And the post, I want to show the post vertical, so I'm going to go this way with it. And I think it's 1.75. I started off with 2 inches. But then again, we did a final cut on those with the cross cut, and then so basically I'm taking off. I think it was an eighth or a quarter. I'll figure that out. But now I've got my shape anyhow. I'm going to do a rectangle. I look in the lower right hand corner of my screen. It says dimensions 1 3/4 by 4.5. I'm just confirming that that's what I got. I select from left to right. I always make a component very, very early on, and I'm going to call this post board outer, because I think I'm going to have I might end up having a separate inner post board, even though they're going to be the same in most respects. So then double clicking on it, and then I think these posts ended up being about 30 inches tall, so I'm going to push pull that to 30, enter. Now I have that first post. Now I want my inner part, and that's going to be 3/4. I remember, I knew that I was consistent with, so I just did a 3/4 guideline. Again, lower left hand corner, and dragging over bottom right says 4.5 comma 3/4. Take that, and then even though I'm here, I can select left to right. It doesn't hurt to select. I'm not selecting the post, I'm just selecting the drawing that I just made. I'm going to right click that component, and that one I'm going to call post inner. Well, sometimes I call it the meat. In fact, why don't I do that? I'll be consistent. So I'm going to change that to, from post inner, I'm going to change it to post meat. And then that's consistent with and then this one here, I clicked on that, and I'm going to call that post bread. Again, it's consistent with some analogies that I use in the tutorials, so might as well stick with that now. Now I'm going to click on that one, double click on it, hit the P for push pull, and then if I double click that, it'll take it to the exact same one that I just did. At least it should. Yep, there it is. Okay. Now I like to work with wood. I don't like to work with square blocks. So I'm going to go to my early on here. I like working with the materials already on it. It helps me kind of define stuff. So I'm going to see if there's anything else out here. There are. I'm going to purge those, and then in the model, I can't get down to wood for, I don't know why it does that, but I've never been able to figure out. So I clicked on something else first. Now it did. Now I'll select this as my outer, which just kind of looks like wood. It's really treated, but I want to edit that color, make it a little yellower. This stuff was red oak, right? So I'll make it a little bit reddish, and then to make the texture look a little better, I'll change that down there to a 1, and we now have something that looks a little closer to what it was anyhow, right? And then just so it's easier to identify later, I am going to make the inside of a different material. And the wood cherry is kind of a nice one. Did that, and I'll keep it a little bit darker, but not that dark. So I'm going to edit that. I'll come up a little bit with that color. I'll take it over there, and then this one I'll change to a 2, and let's just see how that looks. Not bad. Yeah, maybe I'll make that a little bit darker. There, looks more like black walnut or something like that. Okay, there, that's not bad. Now I have a couple of options here. I could draw a second and a third post or a third board, but instead I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one. So I'm hitting M, and now I'm going to do a control and drag it over there. It's now I'm getting more and more looking like the post, but if I do something to that post, which I'm going to be doing here in a minute, and like let's say I want to change the thickness on it, so I double click on this and I pull that. Well, it's pulling this one in the wrong direction. So I'm going to Control Z to get that back where it was. And when I'll do the move again because it's nice to pay attention. So I'm just going to delete it. Now I'm going to click on this one, M, Control Hold. I drag it over, and when I drag it over, I notice that I have a red line going, a red dotted line. It tells me that I'm on the red axis there. So now I'm going to right click on that item, flip along, red. Doesn't look much. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So did I do the flip? I did. Okay. So now if I take that post, let's just move it out here for a second. And if I do that, and then I double click on this right here and I push pull, then it takes the other one and pulls it in the direction more common to what I wanted, where I want it to go. It doesn't work all the time. Sometimes it gets a little bit screwy when you talk about 4 posts and 6 posts. But for a post and rail, this tends to work pretty well. And I'm going to Control Z those to get them back. Okay. That way, when you make a change to one side or you make a change to one corner post, everything kind of goes along with it. In most cases. Okay, so now let's just see what I've got for dimensions. I've got 4.5 going that way, and I have 4.25 this way, and this is exactly what I was just talking about. So again, if you remember earlier, I wasn't sure how large to make those posts, how thick, and I made them 1 3/4, and they shouldn't have been. No big deal. See, again, I have 4.25. They really need to be another 1/8 thicker, so I'm double clicking on this one, going to this surface, and I'm pulling that by 1/8, and now you can see the other one is going with it. So I'm just going to type in 1/8, enter, and so I should have made that board is now 1 7/8, and the other one, of course, because it was a component, an exact copy, that went 1 7/8. Now I have I do not dimension on the main drawing, by the way. So I'm just showing what I have. I have 4.5 by 4.5, and so I'm good to go on that. Okay, I do incremental saves, so I'm going to do a save as. I saved it as MicroPost number 01, and I'm going to do a MicroPost 02. Again, incremental. All right, now I'm going to make the cut lists. First of all, why don't we make the bevels? So we'll make it look like what we're going to do. And now I think that might get a little complicated for now. So again, I'm going to bevel the tops of these, but if it were a solid piece, it's a lot easier to do because I'm not messing with this edge here and this edge here and this edge here. I would be beveling a corner. I'd be beveling this whole edge, that whole edge, that whole edge, and that whole edge. So I'm going to stick with leaving these not drawn that way, and just do that in the field. Much better to do, much easier to do. I have some lines going on here I don't need anymore. Edit, delete guides. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to T, and I'm going to use my red axis to create a dotted line, a guideline. And then I'm going to take 2 of those pieces, and I'll take this one and this one, because again, one's a duplicate. I'm going to go down in the lower corner, and I'm going to do a Control M, and then I'm going to slide it along, and I'm just going to type in 10 feet. So it's way the heck over there somewhere. There it is. It's out of the way. Now, while I'm at it, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to make that a group, because a post is really a group of boards, right? Now I'm going to hide that, and then I'm going to come in here, get somewhat close, and I'm going to make a scene because I know I'm going to need it. I want to come back to this quite frequently. It defaults it at scene 2. I'm going to call it CutList. Enter. Oops, typed it wrong. Misspelled it. There we go. Now that way I have, anytime I want to, I can go back to scene 1, which is that. But that one needs a little bit of work, right? So we'll just kind of get ourselves into a good position there, and I'm going to do an update, but I don't want to see the cut list, so I'm going to hide that. Oops, that should have been a group. It wasn't. I'm going to make that a group right now. There we go. Hide. Okay, now I'm going to update this. Update. If I go to my cut list and then I kind of jockey around, I don't see anything over there even though it's there. So if I say view hidden objects, you can see that it is still there. I'm going to turn that off. View hidden objects off. Okay, now I'm going to go to my cut list, so I click on that. You can see now I'm already starting to go there quite frequently. And then when I do my cut list, I try to lay the boards out as if they are, somebody edit, delete guides. There we go. I try to lay them out as if I'm going to put them on the chop saw. So you wouldn't put a board in the chop saw vertically. So I'm going to lay those things down right away, and I'm going to do a Q. And again, it's a group, so both of them are going to go together. I put them down on the red axis, but I'm also looking in the lower right-hand corner where it says angle 90. And then to confirm that, I can actually type 90, enter, and I know then that that went down 90 degrees. Now again, I want to do this as if it's on the chop saw. So I want to have some sort of constant here. So I'm making a dotted line, a guideline on the red axis again. Now I'm going to take these apart. I'm in the group now. I'm going to bring that guy down. In fact, I'm going to bring it down to there, and I'll explain that in a second. But what I want to do is I want to have a plane here that the red axis and everything is all on that same axis. So now I can double click because I'm in the group, and then I grab this guy, bring him down, then I send him back. So they're all, the top surfaces are all in that same plane. And now I'll push that off. Let me just type in 6, enter. So it's about 6 inches off. And again, now you're starting to see it looks more like what I would find on the chop saw. And so I'm going to update my cut list update. But then now I'm going to go up here to this one, which is the top view. And it automatically gives me the perspective of the top view. I'm going to say cut list update again. And that way again, now if I zoom out right now, this is the axis over here where on the view hidden objects I have that post group. View hidden objects off. Okay, but now from now on, if I click on cut list, it's automatically going right to where I want it to go, and scenes goes right to where I want it to go, and I don't have any cut lists sitting out there, although it's there. If I click on hidden objects, you can see there it is. So view hidden objects, and I want that on. Go back to cut list. Now this is a really pretty, actually this is a pretty simple one. I'm gonna go, I'm in a group. You can see the blue lines, right? I'm gonna double click on anything in there. Now I'm inside the group, and then this is where I do all my dimensioning. So I'm gonna use my dimensions to go out there to, that's 4.5, right? This one is 4.5, and then this one is, let me put it on the bottom. No, I'm going to put it on the top. It varies. Sometimes I put them on top, sometimes bottom. This one's going to work out better on top. So I got 30 for that. And then it's going to be a little tough to try to dimension the edge like a 3/4. I'll go ahead and do it. And the reason it's kind of handy once in a while is if you're in the shop and you're using a digital device, like I use a 8-inch Android I take out into shop. I don't have to worry about dust or anything with it. And so by doing that, then what happens is I can actually then, if I want to see a dimension that I can't see on the piece of paper because the font is too small, I can always take the digital device, zoom in like this, and then now I can see that dimension, or this dimension here, right, 3/4. But otherwise it doesn't work very well to do that on and then try to print this. So I'm going to click on cut list up here, which automatically takes me back again to where I want it to be in the first place. And then I'm going to use H for hand. I'm going to slide this over a little bit because I want some blank space over here to write. And this is again, outside the group right now. So, because you can see that I'm not in it, I'm going to double click on something so I'm in the group. And again, now there's my dimensions light up as blue. So I know that I'm in there. And then this is where I'm going to use the text. And just going to click on an item here. That's the post, spread, outer. That's the name of it. And then I'm going to need 2. And then the material, I'll be consistent with some other, I'm going to do all caps on that. Need, comma, 2, not comma, yeah, comma. Okay, and then material is, this one I'll just type any 8/4 to start with. There we go. And then to begin to be consistent, I knew once I get down to, once I'm doing the drawings or in the early stages of the drawings, I name my components not using uppercase. But once I get near the end, because I want my dimensioning to be the same, I'll go in and change the name of the component. So if I go up to entity and it's written as post, spread, outer, but there is some upper and lower case there. I'm just going to change this, hit my auto cap, post, spread, outer, and that kind of just reminds me that, okay, that's pretty well the final, what do you call it, a final component. So I'm going to Control C. I could do this. I'm going to start it all over. I'm going to delete that dimension that I made, go back to text. Now when I go in there, it comes up with that, which is consistent with the way I do my sequencing and my dimensioning. And then I copied and pasted that, so I'm going to do a Control V rather than retyping it. So now I have this is consistent with the way I do things. Now this particular screen or this particular computer, it's hard to see right there, so I'm going to go up to Windows and I'm going to do model info on my dimensioning or my text, and I'm going to do fonts, and I'm going to change it to bold, and I'm going to change it to 12, and it is Calibri, which I like, and I'm going to say OK. And then the same thing with leader text fonts. I'm going to go to 12, I'm going to go to bold and say OK, and then I'm going to go down here, update selected text. Well, there was none selected, so I have to select something. So I select, so I select that. Now when I do update selected text, it supposedly was going to change it. There. So now I've got, it's much easier to read, at least on screen. And again, this is just a computer screen area thing. Rather, if I did this on another computer, maybe it would look just fine. All right, so I've got that, and then I'll go back in. I'm gonna double click on that, and then I'm in there in that box, that text box. I hit the space bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. That just makes an indent, and then I'll just type the number 1 space dash. And this one would say cut or cut extra 1 inch plus long space 2 dash rip extra ½ inch width 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3. Leave thickness at 2 full 2 inch, and I think that's going to be it for now. And then this one, we're going to go down, but I'll explain that, by the way. So, because I want to be able to do the glue ups on these posts, and then after they're glued up, and you're going to see this in the instructable, that I'd wait until afterwards, after the glue up, before I cut the post to final length. So by having at least an extra inch, and I'd even suggest more than that if you got the wood, right, is go to 2 inches or something. Now you're going to have some extra on that, on the end, on the length. But then by ripping from 5 and instead of 4.5, if I rip it at, let's say, 5, if you can, again, if you can, that or even a little wider, not too much wider, because you'll see that I use Gorilla Glue on the outer edges only, and I use conventional glue on the inside, and I want that Gorilla Glue to be in that area, like right along the edges here, that's going to hide the seam. And if I make this board like 5.5 inches or 6 inches and then rip it down later, I'm just gluing more, I'm working more with everything that I do. So I think 5 inches would probably be a pretty good number, and that's probably about what I did when I made it. So ripping an extra 1/2 inch width, and then the thickness, the same thing. When we go to our scenes here and we look at the final being at 4.5, so T, I've got 4.5 there, and then this though is 1 7/8. Well, if I cut this to 1 7/8, or thickness it to 1 7/8, thickness to 1 7/8, thickness to 3/4, well, then I'm not going to be able to do a resaw on that like I did in the demonstration of all the shaping of the materials, and then to get that rough, or to basically redo the rough edges on it. So by leaving this at, and our 8/4 here is really like a 9/4. It's, instead of being 2 inches, it's probably about 2 1/16 or something like that. So now I'm going to go back to CutList, and I've got my, so leave thickness at 2 inches plus is more reality. Okay, this is different though. On the lower board, I'm going to do again using my text, and you can see it says post meet, and again that's not caps, so Control Z to get rid of that. Change this, my entity, from post meet without consistent uppercase. Now I'm changing it to post meet with all uppercase. Just again, just my style of doing things. It just helps me keep my sanity. So now when I do this and I go up here, click on it, now I have post meet and it's all caps. All right, I put my cursor behind the T, hit enter. Now I have the same thing. Need, oops, I'm going to turn on caps. Need, comma, 1. And it's, when I'm doing this, I'm talking per post. In fact, I can just add that per post. And then, oops, I shouldn't have double clicked on that yet. So I need 1 per post. And then material, and that is, I'm going to say any hardwood. Any hardwood. Because I want that hardwood in there. I don't want soft stuff in there. And then I'm going to go down one more, space, 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 excuse me, 5 times. And then 1 is cut, consistent with the sequence up above, extra 1 inch plus long, space, 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 2, rip, extra 1/2 inch, width, space, 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 3. This one though, I do need to make thickness perfect, 3/4, because I'm not going to be able to change the thickness once it's in the GlueUp. So those are my sequencing so far. I might be adding some things to it later. I see I didn't do an update on my scene because I'm getting kind of tight over here. So I'm going to hit the H for hand. Just going to slide that stuff over. And again, I'm leaving myself some space here, so if I get longer sentences, they're going to fit. Now I'm going to go up here to CutList, update. I'm just going to check on things now because I think I'm done. I'm going to do edit, delete guides. Again, I'm just going to make sure I'm where I want to be. So CutList, looking good. Scene 1, which is the post, I'm going to change that to, instead of scene 1, I'm going to change that to post, and then enter. And so that's good. That's just what I'm going to cut it off there as far as the cut list goes. And then just so I can kind of see what's going on here, I'm going to do a view, hidden objects. Nope, I don't want that one. View. I want edit, unhide all. And there, now I have basically what's going to show up on the an image that I'm going to save for something else. So there we go. Next step with the next video tutorial, I'm going to take this and I'm going to start adding some joinery to it.